Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's CX Connect, brought to you by Speech Text, CRM, and Smart Customer Service, and by our Diamond Keynote sponsor, Gridspace. I'm Bob Fernikes, and I'm the publisher of CRM Magazine, and I'm the moderator for this week's webcast. I'm sure many of you have attended one of our webcasts over the past 25 years, but this week we have added something a little different to our format. After today's webcast concludes, we'll bring on Jim Larson, who is the chair for Speech Tech for many years, to have a backstage chat with our speakers, Anthony Scodary and Cooper Johnson from Gridspace. We hope you stick around and ask whatever questions you like and help direct the conversation. But first, we will view this brief video from Gridspace, and then we'll come back and I'll introduce our speakers in today's presentation. All right, let's play the video.
Okay, should I go ahead and submit that request for your new debit card?
Yes.
Okay. Let's check on that card.
Just seeing how long that'll take.
Okay, so I expedited that brand new card A. I also went ahead and waived the normal fee for you.
Oh, thank you.
It should arrive in 3 business days, sir.
Great.
Is there anything?
Okay, welcome back. Today's Diamond sponsored keynote is Gridspace, and the title is Create a Voice Bot in Minutes that Saves Customers Hours. But before we begin, I just want to explain how you can participate in this live session. So if you have any questions, there is a chat and there's a question and answer box. So make sure you use the question and answer box. If you have any questions during the presentation, just type it in, click on the submit button. As I mentioned before the video, we will have an extra backstage segment at the end with Jim Larson at the end of the formal presentation. So you can just stay tuned, and just for fun, you could win a $50 Amazon gift card, which we'll pick live, but you have to be present to win. So now to introduce our speakers for today, we have Anthony Scodary, co-founder, co-head of engineering at Gridspace. Welcome, Anthony. And Cooper Johnson, lead conversion designer at Gridspace. Welcome, Cooper. All right, so now I'm going to pass things over to Anthony. Take it away.
All right, thanks, Bob. Hi, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, I'm Anthony Scodary, and I'll be talking along with Cooper Johnson. And yeah, so the title of today's talk is Create a Voice Bot in Minutes that Saves Customers Hours, or specifically, today's talk is about return on investment. We've been working on speech technology at Gridspace, many of the core components of speech technology for 10 years. And a lot of the work has been on building systems that are smarter and more autonomous. But today we're going to talk about how sufficiently mature speech technology can allow you to provide less and less input to get a acceptably deployable result in production, and some of the technology behind that work. So before we get into that, just a brief overview for those that aren't familiar with Gridspace or myself. Gridspace, we are a modern speech and language technology company. We consider ourselves a center of excellence in the core of speech technology. Notably machine learning on every aspect from signal processing all the way up through language processing. SIFT is the name of our speech analytics platform that passively analyzes speech in call centers. And Grace is the name of our voice bot product, which will be the main focus of the talk today. So first things first, part one, good automation blends in. So from the perspective of voice, last time I spoke at Speech Tech in 2019, I talked about what I call the atomic elements of speech, which is to say, if you look at utterance by utterance, word by word, sentence by sentence, the layers of information carried by language in the spoken voice channel, there are several layers that we have worked to identify and build the taxonomy of. That includes things like named entities, so persons, places, things, semantics and meaning, what something actually means or intends to mean, emotion, demography, role. Dialogue acts are, in linguistics, referred to things like this was a greeting, or this was a yes or no question, this was an affirmative answer, this was a sign off, this was someone signaling that they don't understand. Very important to understanding the flow of a conversation. Obviously, speech recognition, speech to text, as well as speech synthesis, speaker identity, and personality and vocal quality. So for the last decade, like I mentioned, we have been processing passive conversations. We've processed many billions of minutes at this point of passive communication. We've been working on these problems for several years. So the question, though, is why did we initially focus on the call center environment? We have been working on the full speech pipeline, all the way from telephony up through language technology. And a big part of that building that technology stack is making sure that we have full control over the experience from end to end. And the focus on call center came up, well, I'll bring it up by example. So let's say that you're a fertilizer company and you are interested in making better fertilizer. And you obviously could go after the consumer market and gardeners and sell something like Miracle-Gro. However, from the perspective of consumption of fertilizer and the opportunities to optimize that product, 99.99% of fertilizer consumed is consumed in a industrial agriculture context. Factory, large farms consume the bulk majority of fertilizer. And so if you're interested in developing maybe the chemistry or chemical engineering of fertilizer, you would focus on industrialized farms. For us, if you're focused on support and conversations, and you're interested in understanding these fundamentally at a commercially useful level, call centers are the industrialization of support speech, of commercially useful speech. And so by studying billions of minutes of task-oriented conversations, we've been able to build the fundamentals of what I call the atomic elements of speech, build supervised models for each of the components that are needed to understand long-form speech. So if you want to build industrial grade speech, what do you need to do? What's needed so that you can build a spoken dialogue system that is capable of operating in an environment that today is primarily operated by persons? So we're going to walk through several of the key enabling technologies that are required to take that work that is done on understanding passive speech and help improve the understanding of interactive conversations. So first thing, it's very important that you build a system that's monolithic. Gridspace builds our entire stack, as I mentioned before. So that's telephony, speech recognition, NLP, dialogue state tracking, dialogue management, interaction management, speech synthesis, the entire pipeline. And by building the system as one integrated piece of software without reliance on bolting one API to another API to some small piece of code that you build to tie everything together, that gives you no chance of building an integrated, coherent experience where, for instance, the signal data can flow all the way up to the speech synthesis component of your model. Also important is latency. So if your goal is to build something that feels interactive, responsive, quick, like it's alive, low latency is only possible if you build the system monolithically, so you can manage your latency budget. But it's also important for having a fighting chance of actually automating human voice support in a deployed production environment. Emotion and understanding layers of meaning, understanding those atomic elements of speech, also very important to having a fighting chance of performing complex tasks non-linearly in a production-like environment. Understanding entities, so like I mentioned before, persons, places, things, stuff like that, also very critical to being able to understand the language passively. However, in the call center environment, especially with bots, a lot of times you have entities like credit card numbers or names or emails or complex alphanumeric entities where you might need to have a user repeat back parts of an element or handle things out of order or repeat parts of a sequence. And these complex slot filling entities, as they're called in the dialogue system world, are critical to being able to build something that's commercially useful. Robustness and reliability. Now there's many layers to this, but specifically talking about a spoken dialogue system that's operating in the real world in the voice channel, noise rejection, handling interruptions, handling background speech, the ability to ask people to repeat themselves, to be able to repeat a question in a different way, to maybe change intonation when repeating yourself, being able to properly time turn taking, be able to get your voice in when you need to ask a question or when you can't tell whether someone is done talking or not. Those are all parts of building a reliable interactive voice system on top of all the engineering that goes into building these systems at the scale of 20,000, 30,000 simultaneous calls. Most importantly, smart systems should work quickly, which is to say that if you actually attack all of these core problems as defined above, if you actually deal with processing the atomic elements of speech and then building a robust, low latency monolithic system, ideally the system is smart enough at the common denominator across not just conversations, but speech in general. So things like handling interruptions, or things like indicating that there's too much background noise, things like intelligently handling niceties. The less of that is placed on the as a burden on the author, and the more of it is built into the system, the faster you can get something up and running, the lower the amount of investment that you need to make to get a good return on that investment in terms of the tech. I like to liken it to the autonomic nervous system, where obviously, you know, the brain and the nervous system is very complex and can do very smart things, but the brainstem and the autonomic nervous system are providing basic functions on which you can build complexity, keeping things alive and healthy. In general, if your goal is to build smarter bots, you should be doing less authoring. If you want smarter bots, you should be doing less testing. And if you want smarter bots, you should be doing less work. And that's a lot of this work in terms of tooling, robustness, reliability, latency. It's all intended to make it so that things out of the box are smarter, so that you're not programming what to do when things are too loud. You're instead focusing on the specific needs of your business, either information that Grace, our platform, needs to gather for you, or questions that she needs to be able to answer, or routing decisions that she needs to be able to make. So in conclusion, part one, good automation blends in, which is what that means is if Grace is to participate actively in a human-dominated workforce, if she's going to start handling 10, 20-minute conversational calls, which a lot of our customers do today, Grace needs to be able to blend in. When a new agent, a human agent, starts in a call center, they might not know the ins and outs of the business on day one, and they might need to be trained or gain experience. But on day one, the basic elements of how you manage a conversation, how you indicate you can't hear someone, how you greet someone, those things are autonomic, they're built in. And if you have good automation that blends in, that's less work placed on the author and more work that's already been done in advance by our team and by the machine learning process. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cooper for the first demo. We're going to be jumping back and forth, and he's going to start by just showing basic bot creation.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. 1 second, please, while I switch over. Great to be here. Okay, and like Anthony said, we're going to do very quick, simple bot creation today, and we're going to do it truly from scratch. So I'm going to start by creating a brand new Gridspace account. Let's call it Cooper plus speech tech at gridspace.com. Oops, sorry. Silly me. Now I'm creating a Gridspace account from scratch. And to keep everyone out of my inbox, pardon me, I'm going to confirm the account off screen. Bear with me a second. Well, never mind. We'll do it in my real account. All right. So I'm going to create a new bot, and I'm going to use one of our bank front desk bots to get a really quick start on this. I'm going to call this HVPA speech check front desk. And the reason I'm going to call it HPVA is I'm going to copy Anthony's example from earlier talking about a fertilizer company. So let's continue with that fictitious idea and pretend that we're making a front desk bot for a fertilizer company using a Gridspace template to get us going really quickly. So here's a Gridspace bot specification. This is a complete bot. It wouldn't be useful for our purposes if we put it into deployment because it's currently simulating a bank front desk. But what we have here is something that could be, immediately saved and given a phone number, and it's ready to call into. But let's rewrite it for Harper Valley Agricultural Products, which is our fictitious fertilizer company. So I'm going to start by, I don't really like how this call begins. There's no nice warm up. So I'm going to decide I'm going to add a greeting. I'm going to click over to add conversation blocks, because what really makes Gridspace bots quick to set up is you don't have to learn the markup language that bots are written in. You can if you want, but really what we have here is drag and drop ability to add in elements, and they're correctly formatted. So you can see I just dragged in a statement. And hang on, let me zoom in for everyone a little bit, probably make it a little easier to read. So I just dragged in a statement, and I'm going to make this our greeting. So let's rename it greeting, and let's say, just replacing the dialogue as we go. Thank you for calling Harper Valley Agricultural Products. And let's have Grace, our virtual agent, introduce herself in line 2 of the greeting. My name is Grace, and I'm a virtual agent. So it's nice to have Grace disclose who she is. All right. So we've had Grace introduce herself, so I'm going to delete this. And just following the pattern set by the template of the bot, this is where Grace asks for how she can help. Let's call this the service choice, actually. I'm going to rename this question. So the first thing that Grace asks after announcing who she is, let's just be simple and conversational. How may I help you today? And of course, we might not get a clear response from the customer on the first try. There might be static on the line. They might not have been paying attention. Grace might have to ask again. And to make her super conversational, we won't have her repeat the same things over and over again, i.e. how may I help you today? Let's have her modulate her response on the second time that we have to ask the question, if it comes to that. So let's say, I'm not sure I caught that. What would you like help with? And then if we're really struggling, we have a third option for Grace can rephrase, but we might need to add a lot more detail so that the caller knows what's possible with Grace. So let's say, feel free to say what you need. How may I help you? Okay, so that's Grace asking how she can help. She is the front desk. She's the receptionist, the switchboard operator, the first line of contact for the company. And here's down what we have the intents. So this is where the customer can explain what they want to do. And obviously we're going to replace these bank intents with reasons you might call, the vendor for an industrial scale farm. So I think billing would be a common intent that anyone would call any company about. So let's start with that. So billing is our intent header here. And let's give Grace some keywords to help, help her natural language understanding, get a bit of a leg up. So we'll code billing to billing. We'll say pay an invoice, rephrase a little bit, paying an invoice. How about dispute a charge? Those are some, conversational clues so Grace can know that she's listening for a billing type intent. And, a lot of people, when they call a company of any kind, they want to know how their order is doing. So let's make another intent for order status really quickly. And then we'll repeat the process. We'll think about some verbal cues that can help Grace home in on what someone's calling about. Let's say, what's the status of my order? How about where's my order? I could hear someone calling about that. Maybe track a shipment or schedule a delivery. And let's just do one more intent, for the sake of time this morning, even though we're moving right along. Let's make our third intent product help. So I'm calling in for support about using Harbor Valley's agricultural products. So let's say help using, help getting set up. How do I use? Instruction manual. It's probably enough to get us going on the intent for product help. And I'll delete the remaining intent from the bank. And good conversation design, let's not forget that. We always want Grace to confirm what she hears. I'm going to go ahead and delete the confirmations of the intent for the banking box. I want to do something else this time. I'm going to have Grace say, for whatever the intent is, okay, I'll be glad to help with your, and we'll throw some jazz on it. We'll make the answer to the question, which you might remember was service choice. I'll be glad to help with your service choice needs, in which she'll insert billing, order status, or product help, depending on the purpose of the call. We're close to done here with our simple bot, but we're going to add some exits. And these are exits carry outcomes, and they're kind of a little sneak preview of what we're going to get into later, but they're necessary for completing our bot now. So let's say outcome, we're going to key it to our intents. So let's call it one outcome billing help. Someone's calling about help with billing. Grace will say, one moment, please. While I pull up the right information. Kind of a non-committal response here that buys Grace some time as she transfers to the next stage of her bot, but keeps the customer in the loop. And the cool thing is the enabling conditions for our outcomes, they're pretty sophisticated, but they're also very simple to write. So we're just going to write that Grace goes to a billing help outcome whenever someone elected the billing intent for the thing they are needing service for. Let's start doing a little bit of copy paste here. I'm going to copy over the banking template that we're overwriting and saving ourselves a little bit of time even still. We'll have an outcome for order status help correspond to that intent. And we'll just make sure that make everything match up nice and well. I think the other one was product help. I'll do some copy paste here too. Okay, so that's all of our intents mapped to an outcome that will connect to other bots, but we'll get into that a little later in the demo. But I'm also going to add one more thing. Just so we have it, I think we're going to want it later. Let's add an outcome for warm transfer. That is a handoff to a human agent, just in case. It's always good to have, an outlet for grace if, we're talking to a customer whose needs just can't be reached by something we've anticipated so far. So in the eventuality that we have to transfer to an agent, Grace will say, I'll transfer you to my colleague who can help you further, who can assist you further. I'll set a special enabling condition that basically means we weren't able to get to an intent. Grace will try to transfer to a human. Now here's the moment of truth. We see if I made any typos or little oversights or oopsies. I'm going to save the changes to my bot. Didn't get any errors down here in our log. I got a green check mark. That means the bot is a successfully formatted bot. I'm going to promote it to production, which means we can talk to it. Just to prove before I hand back to Anthony that we actually did something here, let's play the audio of this call and I'll interact with it.
Thank you for calling Harbor Valley Agricultural Products. My name is Grace and I am a virtual agent. How may I help you today?
Can I get help paying an invoice?
Okay, I'll be glad to help with your billing needs. One moment, please, while I pull up the right information.
All right, simple bot. We haven't hooked it up to other bots yet, but that's a front desk bot for Grace. Took us, only a couple of minutes and it's ready to go. So that's the end of this portion of the demo. I'm going to hand back to Anthony, but we'll take a look more at this later.
All right, thanks, Cooper. All right, part 2, the right tool for the job. So let's talk really quick about the history of voice automation. So back in 1804 was the Jacquard loom. It was the first programmable piece of automation equipment. It was a punch card controlled loom. 1837, Babbage's analytical engine, the first programmable computer on paper. Telephone in 1876. By 1900, we started to see the emergence of the first call centers. 1952, Bell Labs built the first purely electronic speech recognition system that could identify 10 digits. About 10 years later, IBM developed a speech recognition system that could identify 16 words. By the 70s, DARPA and other teams developed the first language models, the first models of sequences of words that actually understood how words are used in context. By the 80s, we saw the first hidden Markov models and systems that could look at statistical sequences of words and sounds. By the 1990s, we had the first commercial speech product with Dragon Dictation. In 2007, we saw the first speech data mining effort on a large scale by Google via their temporary Goog 411 directory service, which was actually a backdoor way to gather speech data. In 2011, Siri was released as the first mass deployed conversational or spoken dialogue system. In 2012, we saw the first application of neural networks to speech acoustics models. By 2017, we saw the introduction of the transformer, which is a neural network architecture, which is dominant in contexts like BERT or GPT, which you may have read about as the dominant way for both understanding language as well as speech sounds at a large scale. And someday, maybe in the deep future, we will have systems that exhibit strong AI that can have a conversation with you with boundless complexity, but we are not there yet. Automation is not free. And I think everyone knows that who's had to try to deploy some sort of automation. There is work involved to build and deploy an automation system. And if the work is too much, you might spend more time building your automation solution than the work that it would have taken to just do the task. And there's this XKCD comic that actually shows how long you can spend to automate a task based on how much time savings you're going to get from it. And generally, the easier it is to build an automation solution, the more likely it is that you are going to get a lift from it. Now, obviously, in a massive call center where you have 15,000, 20,000 agents, there's a large amount of acceptable time investment to automating that call center. But for smaller call centers or non-traditional voice deployments where you might have 20 or fewer people, the amount of time that you can justify deploying, building, authoring a voice solution, it might not be too high. And on top of that, you might not also have the background to build a complex speech system. You might not know very much about speech systems at all. You understand how you do your customer support, you understand your business. And so the question is, how do we make the return on investment via tooling as high as possible? So the first thing is humans must work alongside these machines, right? Not only to author them, but to provide feedback and also to exchange information. And a lot of the environments where we have deployed Grace, you have a bot hands over to a person who hands over back to another bot, who hands over back to another person. You have to snowball information, make sure that the results extracted by the bot are interpretable to people, and that the data collected by people are interpretable by the bots. Bots need to be able to work alongside humans for them to provide maximal automation lift. Telephony is also very key to making a positive experience for automation in the telephony voice channel. Gridspace is probably, to my knowledge, the only company in the world that's actually running neural networks in a telephony switch, which we write from scratch, purpose-built for interactive voice systems, as opposed to using something off the shelf that isn't appropriate for the task. And that goes back to my earlier points about building systems that are monolithic and low latency. In addition, you need to be able to get data in and out of Grace. That means fulfillment, that means integrating with external APIs, that means integrating with external data stores, not document stores, which I will be showing in a minute. It's critical that you need to be able to that you can get data in and out of a interactive voice system, because ultimately you want the bot to be able to provide information to end users, and you want the voice system to also be able to inject information back into your data stores. And so it's critical that you build a system where data can freely flow in and out, and that this integration can be done in a way where it's approachable to people who have limited time and resources to spend on these integrations. These are symbols of waves, but they don't really resemble actual waves in the ocean, which are much more complex. These are the symbols used to represent speech over the course of history, and but they don't actually resemble speech sounds, right? Speech and text are not the same thing. Text is a way for recording information, whereas speech has a lot of problems and challenges that are unique to that channel, as I'm sure all of you are familiar, ranging from interruption, layers of meaning, speaking speeds, emotion, prosody. And all of these things are reasons why you can't just bolt together a public speech API, a speech recognition API to a public NLP API and hook it up to a library for speech synthesis. You can't do that, right? If you don't build things for speech and you don't build things for an interactive application, you don't have a chance of having the right tooling to do this efficiently. Additionally, training by role play. This is the idea that you might not know much about speech technology or language processing or dialogue systems, but you know what a good call center agent does and should say. You know your business and what's appropriate to say and not to say. It's much easier to have episodic interactions with your bot and provide point-wise feedback than it is to try to do everything up front. And a lot of the work on tooling is about, especially trying to make it approachable to more and more kinds of people, is about allowing people to play the role of an agent or play the role of a customer and then correct things that go wrong. It's called the authoring by role play. Drag and drop interfaces and simple interfaces like Cooper was showing earlier, ideally through pre-built templates and through pre-built blocks that you can drag and drop in. The tooling should make it possible so that you don't really have to know much about bots at all. And that's been a lot of our work the last couple of years as we're trying to get Grace to more and more types of businesses. Quality assurance. There are many types of quality assurance. In the call center environment, QA is a really big part of how you operate a human call center. And Gridspace, which has been building passive voice technology for a decade, has built very complex speech QA tools, ranging from machine models of voice interaction quality to pretty ordinary QA and forms. And our general approach to QA for bots has been QA call center bots like you would QA call center humans, which is to say use the same toolings and intelligently flow feedback back to the bot authors, back to the stewards of the voice system, so that if you want to have separate people that are QAing, providing feedback, that don't need to know much about the voice system, but just say this is good, this is bad, you can have that feedback flow both to the authors, but also to the voice system itself, which has been a big focus the last couple of years. There are a lot of types of specialized tools in the world, right? I think everyone who's used specialized tools know that you can turn a day-long task into a 2-minute task if you have the right tool for the job. This is a specialized knife for getting all the peanut butter out of a jar. This is an old-timey way to jump between multiple books in your study. This is a specialized vehicle for chase cameras on film sets. If you have the right tool for the job, you can be much more efficient, substantially more efficient, sometimes 1000x more efficient, if you're not needing to do things that are burdensome. And that's been our goal the last couple of years, which is by making things smarter and more robust and reliable, like I talked about, but also building the right tools for authoring and development. Then you have specialized technology, you warrant specialized tooling. So with that, I'm going to jump back to Cooper, who's going to show a demo of the call flow management tooling.
Great, excited to show this off. Hang on one second. Okay. So here is our call flow management tool, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I want to give a chance for Anthony to wrap up. So we'll kind of do a truncated version of a call flow, but we'll do it from scratch like we did before. And call flow is going to connect bots together. Basically, in this example, we'll show the front desk bot that we already had connected to some specialized bots. I'm going to call this bot flow, this call flow, Harper Valley Agricultural front desk flow. We'll call it that too up here in the flow name. All right. So I've created our flow. Now what we have is a blank canvas. Blank canvas that starts with an inlet, which is a call into what's going to be our system. But let's add a bot. We get a call in. What do we do? Let's add a bot node. The only bot node in our system is the bot that I created earlier. This is the front desk node. I'll save my work. And first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Let's make off of our bot, we get a call in, we get a call into the front desk. Let's make sure that this call doesn't run on forever and it's just going to be on the line if someone stays on with Grace. Let's just make sure that we add a default node called a hang up node. Save my work again. All right. So now the bot is happy that, whatever else happens, it can go to a hang up. Now we're really ready to get started. But you might remember that earlier I showed you the outcomes, and I'll probably just do one in the sake of time. But we had our billing intent. And Grace acknowledged that someone was calling about billing. And now what's she going to do with that? She's going to hand off to another Grace bot. And we're going to do that by clicking on this node here for the outcome billing help. And I'll add a node, and that's going to go to a bot. Let's see, that's a bot that's going to specialize in helping people with all sorts of billing issues. So I'll add a bot there. But, you might remember we've only done one bot. We haven't written a bot for billing help yet. So I'm going to do create a new bot, get sent back to the bot editor, create a new bot. Let's just make this one a default blank bot. We'll call it HVPA, Harper Valley Agricultural Products Billing Bot. We'll create it. Here's another bot in our editor. I'll zoom in a little bit for everyone at home. Let's see. This is kind of going to be a placeholder. It's where we'll iterate on our bot endlessly as it gets better and better and the business for Harper Valley Agricultural Products develops. Let's see, just for now, Grace is going to say, this is where we'll develop our billing help bot. And that's all we're going to say for now. But I think what I'll do is I'll add the same warm transfer option just to make this bot complete for now while we develop it. We're going to do drag and drop in and exit. And I can make the outcome warm transfer, just like I did for our front desk bot in the cases where someone just couldn't get help with the bot, or was being a especially difficult customer or anything like that. And let's see. Let's write some different text for the warm transfer. Let me transfer you my colleague who can help you further. Another moment of truth. Close these. Save my changes, see if I made any oopsies. No, I didn't. Green check mark, successful build on the bot, because all I did was replace dialogue from our drag and drop template elements. I'm gonna promote that to production so that the bot flow knows that it can use it. Let's hop back over to the call flow. Now, auto completes. We have a new HVAP billing bot. I'm gonna add that as a node. We should be good. Save my work so we don't go anywhere. But real quick, last thing I achieve before I hand back to Anthony. This is a successful hand up. Incoming call, front desk takes the bot. We determine that the intent is billing, and it's going to hand off to the billing bot. We could repeat that pattern for all of the intents. We'll skip it today just in the name of time, but this is the pattern. We just need to repeat that, making a specialized bot for all of our intents, and the front desk would hand off to it. Or if something were really going wrong, we could hand off to a warm transfer. So let's do that last. Let's add in our warm transfer node. Let's go back to our front desk bot. Let's click on the warm transfer outcome, and let's make an outlet. An outlet's going to be a transfer to some other number, to some other place. So let's add in a number. That's all we need to do for an outlet. And let's also make warm transfer the destination for warm transfer in the warm transfer outlet. Let's make it the warm transfer, the destination for our billing bot. So let's click on it there. Close this, save my work. I hope this is zoomed in enough, but this is the pattern that I want everyone to see. We've very, very quickly been able to iterate on how we want our bot flow system to work. Incoming call, talk to the front desk bot that we had built earlier. We'd follow this pattern for all of our intents, following the outcome for each intent. In this case, billing help goes to a specialized bot. And either from there, we're going to go to our hang up if the call is complete, or if someone really, really needs help, we're going to do a warm transfer, either from the front desk or from the billing bot to a human who's waiting there, and a human who's had their workload substantially reduced by Grace being able to handle about 99% of whatever a caller was calling in about, and even more as we develop intents, develop special handling for our front desk bot. So I'm going to leave it there to be able to hand back to Anthony, but that was just a real quick build out of a call flow. Only took us a couple of minutes, and we are well on our way to building a really robust Grace bot for the long term.
All right. Well, thanks, Cooper. All right. Part 3. This is what we're calling artificial wisdom in contrast to artificial intelligence. So let's say that you work 50 years in your career from 18 to 68 or something. And you work 52 weeks a year and you work 5 days per week. That's 13,000 work days in a career. In a large call center environment, our Gridspace SIF platform will consume that in a day. Generally, your ability to collect information, to experience obscure scenarios, when you have a machine learning system deployed across a large number of agents, absolutely shadows the ability of one person to plausibly encounter every scenario in their training period, much less, or their lifetime, much less their training period. AI, artificial intelligence, is kind of a fraught term, or the origins are back to the 1960s, but generally AI really just tends to mean whatever is at the fringes of what's possible with computation in terms of automation. By contrast, we'd like to focus on what we're calling artificial wisdom, which is to say, When you are performing data tasks, when you are answering questions, when you're collecting feedback, when you're routing calls, when you're doing the things that you do in a call center environment, knowledge is much more important than just raw IQ. It's much more important that you have collected information about the business, institutional knowledge, institutional memory, than it is necessarily to just build a system that is smart and well trained. So this is taken from the fact that Mark Twain, he said that he came into the world with Halley's Comet. He would leave the world with Halley's Comet, which is true. He was born and died in 2 different visits of Halley's Comet. Generally, in a lifetime, you can accumulate a large amount of experience that ultimately can be extremely valuable, especially institutional knowledge when you're operating in a call center environment. Your goal in building Grace, or a dialogue system that is automating your business, should be a compendium of knowledge. It should be a store of institutional memory, so that when callers are calling with obscure tasks, with questions, with data requests, when they're trying to access information from data stores, it's all there. And having the dialogue system itself, as you iterate on it over time, act as an artifact for encoding an entire company's worth of information, is an opportunity to build a dialogue system that isn't only capable of automating what a person does, but is capable of just experiencing much more in its lifetime than a person ever could. What you want is a village elder, not a mechanical savant. And so let's talk about some techniques for gathering what we're calling machine wisdom or artificial wisdom. One is, I'm not going to demo it today, but Gridspace provides the ability to index documents, whether it's a bunch of PDFs or it is a FAQ or a website or a knowledge base. We can send out crawlers, scrapers, and indexers, and semantically index every single bit of information that your company has for it to consume, and look for question answer pairs, look for information that can later be queried, and provide that information to a human or a bot. And by indexing documents, by indexing data, you have a fighting chance of actually making your bot, making your dialogue system much more aware of obscure institutional policies or information than one person could plausibly ever do. Additionally, online learning and adaptation. Online learning is a machine learning term for continuous learning, learning as you go. That's very important for a deployed production system, whether it's improving the speech recognition to understand product names or company-specific lingo, all the way up through having the intent recognition in the dialogue system better capable of recognizing what question is being asked or what is someone interrupting to try to achieve. And that's also very, very critical to building a system that over time becomes wise and adapted. Specialized supervised speech models. Now, this is again the atomic elements of speech that I talked about earlier. Supervised learning and machine learning lingo again means specialized machine learning models that are built in advance. And for us, it's things like emotion and entities, speech recognition, synthesis. By coming preloaded with these models, the system on day one is able to be aware of things like emotion, and therefore it has the fighting chance of building wisdom around it. Distributed authoring, this is a really critical one. So generally everything that Cooper has shown you, both the bot editor and the callflow editor, are designed to be edited by teams, to be edited in a distributed manner. They also can be version controlled and exported, imported, whatever your business does. We version control it, and you can also put it in whatever your company's change control system is. But this provides an opportunity for thousands of people at a large company to collaboratively encode their knowledge of their corner of the institutional memory. And this is an opportunity to make a bot, a platform like Grace, capable of encoding in its authoring in it as an artifact of a wide body of knowledge that could not be plausibly done by a person. So artificial wisdom, I mean, is a term that we're using to refer to automation systems that collect information beyond just the raw firepower, the raw horsepower of, I guess, what people call AI, what we call supervised machine learning models for the atomic elements of speech. But beyond that, consuming data, interacting with external data stores, collaborative moderation and development of your system is very critical to having a fighting chance of building a system that is actually a very high ROI. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Cooper one last time to demo what an iterated system looks like, a system that's starting to become a compendium of knowledge.
Great, thank you, Anthony. Okay, and you may notice this looks a little different from when we last looked. That's because while Anthony was talking, I took the liberty of connecting up our other bot nodes. So from our front desk, you may remember we had our intents, billing, product support help, and what was the other? Order status. So we can see that billing help, the intent is connected out of the front desk, and so is order status, and so is product support. So I was able to do that all just while Anthony was talking, since you last heard from me. But I want to show how, let's take the opportunity to do some real-time authoring of how we would iterate on this bot on the fly and see if we can make a quick call out to Anthony. So why don't we just hop back into our billing bot. I'm going to inspect that billing bot. And they may be a little too zoomed out. Hang on. And that bot, I think, is actually opening outside of the range of what I can manage to share on screen right now. Stand by. Well, I think the Wi-Fi is being a little spotty. So how will we pivot? Anthony, I think I'm going to make an attempt to call into this bot. And how about you see if you can answer the call as our agent out of the warm transfer?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, hang on one second. Let me zoom in so I can actually see what the number is to call into Harbor Valley Agricultural Products.
On Harbor Valley Agricultural Products. My name is Grace and I am a virtual agent. How may I help you today?
Can I get help paying an invoice?
Okay, I'll be glad to help with your billing needs. One moment, please, while I pull up the right information. This is where we'll develop our billing help bot. Let me transfer you to my colleague who can help you further.
Scodary, please leave a message after the beep. Thanks.
At the tone, please record your message.
Yeah, well, the best laid plans. That went through to Anthony. I don't know why he wasn't able to pick up. No hard
I just
feelings.
went to my machine for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Okay. No bad, but you know, that was Anthony's voicemail. We did connect through to him. And I just, you know, in the sake of time, we'll kind of leave it at that on this demo. But, you know, as a reminder, like while Anthony was talking, he was talking about, you know, the artificial wisdom that can be baked into a bot system so effectively. It's like, look what we have here. Like just while he was talking, I was able to add out bot nodes for our order status bot and our product support bot. And those are basically the framework for, you know, endless iteration as a company's, you know, the products offered expands, or if we had to add an emergency node for like, say, flooding in the southeastern region and, you know, orders had to be postponed because there are no fields that were dry enough to fertilize, we can add a node like that. And that knowledge would be retained in Grace, adding to that artificial wisdom where Grace doesn't forget anything and she can be endlessly taught new skills and she can evolve, you know, a comprehensive knowledge of a company's business, of their customer needs, of how best to interact with customers, remembering customer preferences based on an incoming phone number. All of that can live within Grace and all of it can be added so quickly. And in callflow, we have a visual representation of, you know, the mind of Grace. Grace is an autonomic nervous system, like Anthony mentioned, that we see here in the HVPA front desk callflow. You know, Grace can just be taught whatever she needs to be an ideal village elder for the company. All of it will live here. All of it will be traceable in the callflow, and the experience is proven out just by calling in and having her routed through specialized bots back to different bots, different intents, looping back to the beginning again. All of that can be achieved, and Grace remembers it all. Anthony, I think I'll hand back to you now for a conclusion, unless you have anything you want me to show.
Oh, actually, let's do it one more time. My phone was in do not disturb mode for the talk. So go ahead and just call back in. Let's do one more demo. It's fun to talk to the bot.
Okay.
Thank you for calling Harbor Valley Agricultural Products. My name is Grace, and I am a virtual agent. How may I help you today?
I have a billing question about autopay.
Okay, I'll be glad to help with your billing needs. One moment, please, while I pull up the right information. This is where we'll develop our billing help bot. Let me transfer you to my colleague who can help you further.
Hello, how can I help you?
Is this a Harper Valley agent? I need help with a billing issue.
Yeah, I can help you with that. What's your question?
How much does 2 tons of fertilizer cost? All right, I think that's that.
And
Bye, Agent Anthony.
All right, maybe Cooper quickly show the conversation view too.
Okay, hang on one second. I'm going to pop over to search view in Gridspace Sift in our suite of tools. And Anthony, since I still have you on the line, are we seeing a conversation? Am I seeing the right tab?
Yep.
Okay,
That was
cool.
great.
So this is the conversation that I just had with Anthony. A conversation gets recorded just like Grace was a human agent, any conversation passing through the Gridspace system. Shortly here, we'll have the audio of the call processed. Probably if I reload the page, it'll be pretty close to done. But yeah, you can see this is the intent I called about. When we reach through to Anthony, I need help with the billing issue, and then how much does 2 tons of fertilizer cost? So that was
All
that.
right, cool.
Okay,
I think I'm going to wrap up here, Coop.
great, thank you.
All right. That we could show that though. All right, so in review, good automation blends in. What that means is smart systems, the more autonomic capabilities they have built in out of the box, need less instruction. The right tool for the job. If you are building a sophisticated automation system, specialized sophisticated tools make automation worth the investment instead of making the investment cost more than the automation itself. And artificial wisdom, designing systems so that they can be an artifact that encodes institutional memory, institutional knowledge, external data is key to making an automation system in a conversational, task-oriented dialogue system context maximally useful. So all this you can try yourself if you go to api.gridspace.com or send us an email at inquiries@gridspace.com, and we'd love to have you guys try this yourself. You can just sign up and start doing exactly what Cooper just did. And with that, we're open for questions.
Okay, coming back in. You know, Anthony, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask 2 quick questions right now, and then I'm going to pass it over to Jim, who's got his own agenda, and people can ask questions there as well. But these 2 people have been waiting a little bit of time, so I'm just going to quickly ask these questions. The first is from Shiv Rob Prasad, and the question is, how is the voice bot connected to telephony services? Is it like SIP, RTP? And how does the bot connect to NLP? Is it through MRCP or some other protocol? Can you walk us through this alphabet soup?
Sure. So Gridspace, like I said, builds telephony, the telephony stack from scratch, purpose-built to plug into existing call centers, which means that we have implemented SIP and RTP all the way down to the RFCs so that we can completely integrate into a call system. If you are putting a widget in your website where you want Grace to connect through the browser, we also can speak WebRTC as well.
Okay, great. By the way, I thought I was good enough to take Cooper's job because the first demo seemed so easy, but then it got a little bit more complicated. So Cooper, you're safe. I won't be taking over your job. But to everyone else on the line, and we have quite a number of people here, we're doing something a little bit different. We're inviting Jim Larson on. Jim is our chair of speech tech for many, many years. He's been around. Many of you know him. And he's going to do a little backstage chat with both Anthony and Cooper. So, you know, he definitely wants to mix it up with the audience. So, Jim, I'm going to take it away. I'll just ask everybody again, if you do want to ask a question, if you could use the Q&A rather than the chat, Jim is more apt to see it. Great presentation, guys. Had so many questions about ROI, and you know the speed indicates that you guys must be capturing pretty good ROI pretty early. But I'll let that sit with Jim for now. So I'm going to pop off. Jim, take it away.
Thank you. And Anthony, thank you for a wonderful presentation and a very exciting demo. It raises a couple of questions in my mind. If I were a CEO of Harper Valley Company, how much effort should I reserve for completing the Grace implementation that you started? Is it an order of days or weeks or months? How much effort is really required?
It's a really good question, Jim. And obviously a point of the talk was that trying to minimize that amount of time is a big goal of our company. And it is something that we've been improving over time. But I would say right now, if you were the CEO of our Harper Valley, let's say Harper Valley was a couple thousand person agricultural product company, you know, with maybe a mid-sized call center, you would expect to maybe have maybe 2 to 3 people spend a week or two developing the initial proof of concept, and then probably several months of iteration by at least one person. For a larger deployment, so let's say you're deploying the, you want to replace your IVR with a conversational system for, let's say, a large bank, like which is, what some of our customers look like today. That effort might be, a slightly bigger team. You might have 4 or 5, maybe 6 people that are working on it for half a year, continuing to iterate on it. Obviously, just like anything else, like any other software, any other engineering, effort is needed to get to get ROI out. And so if you're trying to build something that is completely automating a 15 or half of a 15,000 person call center, that's obviously a really Herculean effort. But if you're just trying to pick out the low-hanging fruits in a corner of your call center as your initial automation goals, then that can really be done in days. And like I said, a lot of our tooling is being designed so that you can distribute this work of iteration across your best call center agents who know how to be good agents better than anyone. So you can distribute it across people who are non-technical. And that provides an opportunity to at least make the effort more easily distributed. And like they said, to gather that institutional knowledge from the people that have it rather than from maybe technologists that maybe aren't the right people to try to encode that information.
Thank you. That gives me a sense of how much effort it takes to do a real system. Talk to me about feedback on the system. How do I know the system is working, that's working quickly, that users can use it, that users find it useful? Yeah. What's the feedback mechanism and how do I incorporate that into the iteration?
Really, really great question. The primary feedback mechanism is our QA capabilities so at the end there, Cooper showed the conversation view. That is the record in SIFT for a human or a bot conversation. And when it's a bot conversation, things like what information was extracted, what decisions the bot made, all of that are exposed. And the main feedback mechanism is either, if you just want to track qualitative feedback, like did the bot do a good job, or was the person satisfied, was the call efficient, you can track qualitative stuff like that in a form that you create or a default form provided by Gridspace, and that information will be tracked in an analytics dashboard so you can see the NPS or the CSAT of your bot over time, and also the QA scores on individual questions. For more quantitative feedback or more precise feedback, like, hey, the bot should have said something different here, or the bot didn't recognize the correct intent, that information can be provided right on the line in the transcript, and that flows back to the bot authoring system that Cooper showed you as a to-do item to improve that. And that's that kind of role play based feedback that I talked about.
Can I add some color to that answer, Anthony? As the conversation design lead, something I'm very interested in that can be accessed through the same systems Anthony is talking about, i.e. looking at the transcript of every call in detail, is that we can find the weird edge cases of language that come up inevitably. Like if we see in conversations that someone has used a really vernacular way of saying yes, like specifically, oh, you betcha, for example, and we're seeing that in one conversation, then we see it come up in many conversations, we can teach Grace to accept, oh, you betcha, as a specific way of answering in the affirmative. So that's really nice too, beyond just designing the system at a macro level. The micro level, we can look at what people are saying and respond instantly, being like, okay, Grace can be more robust by being more receptive to this form of language because we have the records there to prove it.
How would I discover what functions are missing from Grace? For example, several people might call up and ask, my gizmo is broken, but Grace has no idea what a gizmo is. How do I discover what's missing from Grace?
That's a really great question. So let's say first of all, let's say you don't even have the intent for my gizmo's broken, even if they said it in a less weird way. Then it would be tagged as an unhandled outcome. And we actually have views that are meant to show all the unhandled outcomes that have been identified in the course of the operation of the bot. And that just acts as the to-do item to add that intent. Now, let's say that the word gizmo is the problem. This basically, it's just too weird. You authored your example for the few shot learning intent recognition was, I am having a malfunction, right? Which is just so semantically different than my gizmo's broken that it just might not recognize that as the same thing. I don't know. And so then you would just actually take that line of the transcript and add it as an example to your intent recognition, and that's it. That's that role play based thing where you're point wise providing feedback. It's a lot easier to say, hey, it didn't figure out that this was a malfunction. This should have been a malfunction. That's it.
The following is kind of a technical question. I believe you folks have the ability to understand people's emotions by listening to their voice patterns. Let's suppose a user suddenly becomes sarcastic. How should I design the dialogue to consider that? What changes in the dialogue should be made to deal with a sarcastic person?
That's a really good question. Well, okay, let's give an example. Let's say that someone is asked, like, hey, was I helpful to you today by the bot? Let's say this, how the call wraps up. And someone who's exasperated and has had a negative experience might say, yeah, it was really helpful. That was amazing. And so sarcasm isn't one of the emotion categorical emotions we pull out, but something like exasperation would be recognized that someone is frustrated, and it would show up as frustrated. And what you can do is if over time you author the bot to handle frustration directly, then and when you're asking someone, were you satisfied? That's a very likely thing to recognize. You can whether it's in the bot or in your feedback mechanism itself, recognize and pull the categorical emotion out of the system. And we actually have customers today that are directly consuming our emotion data and making minute-by-minute decisions. Actually, one of the largest telecom companies that we work with in the US is making minute-by-minute decisions in terms of how an individual call's emotion valence changes over time. And so that's sort of operationalizing around emotion, which we've been doing for years, and we talked about more in our keynote in 2019, has been pulled into the bot world, has been pulled into Grace, so that Grace can make decisions using that information in the same way a person would.
So,
sorry, one more quick thing about that. I showed in my demo that, per request, per Grace asking for a piece of information from the caller, we can very quickly author anywhere up to 3 different phrasings of that prompt. And considering sarcasm as broadly speaking under an antagonistic response, we can do prompt design that accounts for, sarcasm falling under that umbrella, and having Grace remodulate how she phrases a question, assuming that someone might not be being nice back to her. So that's a quick answer. We can do that too on the conversational side.
Thank you. That sounds super powerful. I can imagine being able to detect emotions that users express verbally and dynamically adjusting the dialogue to take into consideration those emotions. For example, if the user is sad, I can express my condolences. If the user is excited, I can get excited. Does the emotion affect your text-to-speech capability? Does Grace become excited or unhappy in reaction to users' emotions?
That's a good question. That's on our roadmap. That's not currently available, at least not to the general public. Cooper, who actually also leads a lot of the recording sessions for our text-to-speech model. Cooper's background, if you guys didn't know, is in animation and voice recording. Includes sessions where the voice actor is speaking under her voice, is sad or empathetic, is happy or delighted. And so we're right now working on allowing the text-to-speech to modulate its emotion. And then it's a very easy additional step to then build in a little bit more responsiveness and empathy into the modulation of the TTS. But right now that's not available. Unfortunately, obviously, we are detecting emotion. And so if you want to change what Grace says, the text-to-speech model is smart enough to change her prosody based on the content. So if you say, I'm very sorry to hear that, the text-to-speech model will inject an empathetic tone, but to actually directly tie, okay, if this person's upset, into you should modulate your tone, that's not yet available, but it should be available in the next year.
And just to clarify for anyone who's on the less technical side, like me, I'm not an engineer. No canned responses. Grace is true text-to-speech. Nothing you will ever hear in an interaction with Grace is a prior recording. It's all generated on the fly, and just her data set is very good at containing many emotional modes.
I see that you capture the entire conversation as it occurs. And I assume that conversation is stored so it can be reviewed later and analyzed, attempts to improve Grace. Talk to me about your privacy policy. Who can access that information? What can they do with it? How do you enforce that policy?
Got it. Yeah, really great question. These are all great questions. So let's talk about both security and privacy. From the security perspective, most of our customers today are in financial services and healthcare, which have very high bars for both security and privacy. We are PCI and high trust certified. We are, for a small speech company to have all those security certifications for banking and healthcare has been really critical. From the privacy perspective, so data access, data control, we have hundreds of fine-grained permissions that can be tied to your rule-based access control system, which if you have a single sign-on system like Okta to log into Gridspace, the user's role is then mapped onto what their permissions and what user groups they're in, which then controls which conversations they can see, which features they can use, what capabilities they can do. And also everything that anyone does in terms of data access is logged to an audit log, which is exposed to the end customer. And so in general, obviously bank level security, PCI security, end-to-end encryption and encryption at rest, all that stuff. And from the privacy perspective, there's very fine-grained control over who can access the conversation. And that's how we've been able to be deployed with large customers that have many tens of thousands of employees, is by tying into their single sign-on system and flowing roles and permissions down to Gridspace.
Thank you. That sounds exciting. I have one final question because it's almost time to leave. What questions should I have asked you that I didn't?
How do I try it, or how do I use it?
That's what I meant to ask. Thank you. What's the answer?
The answer is, I'll just put it in the chat here as well. So either you can sign up at api.gridspace.com or send us an email, inquiries@gridspace.com. And yeah, just reach out to us, and we would, or just sign up and start using it. If you have a voice automation use case, you have never used a voice bot in production, or you have something that's that you think is unusual, but maybe it isn't, or you want to upgrade your IVR with something that is conversational, either sign up or reach out to us, and we're happy to talk to you and help you guys. Or if you just want to learn more about what we do, or you want to hear me and Cooper babble on longer, or show we showed like 2% of the product, we're always happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Cooper, for a very interesting demonstration, an interesting presentation, and some excellent responses to my challenging questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I want to remind everybody, don't forget to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern is Aligning Employees and Customers for Best in Class Total Experience, followed by a backstage chat with Brent Leary and Paul Greenberg. And then at 2 o'clock tomorrow Eastern Time, the 5 customer service traps that derail growth presented by Zendesk. So there's some interesting things to tune in tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk with you next. Oh, Bob has something.
Yeah, can I just mention one thing? Our winner of the $50 Amazon gift card is Mark Dugloff. Don't worry, Mark. I saw you just disappeared, so we'll catch up with you via email. Just wanted to put that out there. I know there were some other questions that came from people in the audience that we didn't get a chance to answer. Don't worry, we'll follow up within a couple days. Also, there was a general question about the slides. Yes, all of this will be archived, and again, everyone will receive an email within a few days, so you don't have to do anything. You'll get an email. And that's all I have, Jim. Thanks so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
Our sponsors and Cooper, fantastic presentation. Good to see you after 2019 was the last time I saw you in person. So yeah,
in DC.
Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody doing well. Thanks, Cooper. Thanks, everyone. All right. Bye-bye now.